Have you ever found yourself asking, why won't they give me the love, the commitment, the devotion I deserve? We often turn our attention outward, watching, waiting, even worrying about what others are doing. But here's the truth: the secret to manifesting devotion isn't in controlling them. It's in mastering you. The outer world is a mirror, and it only reflects what you are assuming within. The first shift is to understand that reality doesn't begin outside, it begins inside. Your imagination is the creative power that scripts the play of your life. If within you see yourself as chosen, adored, and deeply valued, the world has no choice but to echo that vision. Most people live backwards. They wait for proof, they wait for others to show up differently, they wait for love to appear. But waiting is only reinforcing the belief that it doesn't exist yet. The key is to live as though it already does. Devotion is not something you chase. It is something you embody. Your inner dialogue is the constant prayer you are offering to life. Every time you whisper to yourself, "They don't love me," or "What if they leave?" you are rehearsing rejection. But when you affirm within, "I am cherished, I am adored, I am the one they choose," you are rehearsing devotion. And what is rehearsed internally will soon be performed externally. Others are not the source of your love, they are the reflection of your assumption. That means the power has never been in their hands, it has always been in yours. Instead of asking, "When will they change?" ask, "What am I assuming about myself?" Because devotion appears the moment you assume yourself worthy of it. This is not about controlling someone else's will. It is about aligning your own inner state. When you stand firm in the assumption that you are already the beloved, circumstances bend to support that truth. The outside world cannot resist the authority of an inner conviction. And here's the final piece: persistence. Devotion doesn't appear because you thought about it once, it appears because you lived in the end until it became natural. When doubt arises, return to your inner scene. When fear whispers, drown it with the feeling of already being loved. Persistence is the bridge from imagination to manifestation. Imagination creates reality. These words carry within them a truth so profound that once grasped, they change the way life itself is approached. For most people, imagination is treated as a playground for idle daydreams, a place where fantasies can exist but have little impact on the real world. Yet the deeper understanding is that imagination is not separate from reality, but the womb from which reality is born. Every event, every relationship, every circumstance we find ourselves in has its root in what was once imagined. What you hold within your mind with deep feeling and unwavering conviction becomes the blueprint from which your outer world is constructed. Consider for a moment how every human creation began. The house you live in, the phone you use, the chair you sit on, all were once invisible ideas in the mind of someone who dared to imagine them. Before they had shape, weight, or form, they existed only in the realm of thought. A builder doesn't simply throw bricks together and hope they form a home. First, there is a design, a mental picture of what the final creation will look like. The same is true for your life. The conditions you live through are not accidents, they are constructions. And the draftsman is your imagination. But imagination does not create by idle drifting. It creates when thought is charged with feeling. A passing thought that carries no emotional weight quickly dissolves. But a thought wrapped in strong emotion becomes magnetic. It impresses itself upon the subconscious, and the subconscious, like fertile soil, brings forth whatever seed is planted in it. If you continuously imagine yourself rejected, unwanted, or unseen, and you feel those imaginations deeply, then you are instructing life to show you scenarios that mirror those beliefs. If, on the other hand, you imagine yourself valued, loved, and successful with genuine feeling, you will find that the world begins to conform to that assumption. Conviction is the seal on imagination. Many imagine what they want but cancel it with doubt the moment after. They dream of success but then quickly say, "It's impossible for me." They picture love but then whisper, "It never works out." In doing so, they plant and uproot the seed over and over, leaving no chance for it to take root. Conviction means standing firm in the unseen reality even before there is any physical evidence of it. It means treating the imaginal scene as more real than the contradiction of appearances. The outer world is not fixed, it is fluid, responding constantly to the instructions of your inner state. The power of imagination is not limited by circumstance. Many look at their current conditions and believe they are imprisoned by them, yet imagination is always free. A person behind closed doors can imagine themselves walking freely in the sun. Someone struggling financially can imagine themselves living in abundance. The outer world may take time to shift, but imagination operates instantly, creating the inner experience of the desired state. The more consistently you return to this imaginal dwelling place, the more solid it becomes until life itself reshapes to reflect it. Every transformation begins within. Suppose a person who feels overlooked in relationships imagines being chosen, cherished, and prioritized. At first, the outer world may not move and doubts may arise. But if they persist, continually bringing themselves back into the inner feeling of being adored, something subtle begins to shift. Their self-concept changes. They carry themselves differently. They radiate a new energy. Others cannot help but respond to this unseen change. Suddenly, people begin to treat them in ways that reflect the assumption they have been living in inwardly. This is why imagination is the most sacred faculty we possess. It is not mere entertainment, it is the power to revise, to recreate, and to set the course of life. When unpleasant memories rise, imagination can rewrite them. Instead of reliving pain, one can picture a new outcome, feeling into it as though it were real. The subconscious does not distinguish between actual past and vividly imagined past. It accepts whatever is impressed upon it. In this way, even the chains of yesterday can be broken, and the future reshaped. To live unconsciously is to let imagination run wild with fear, doubt, and limitation. The mind naturally imagines, whether you direct it or not. If you leave it unattended, it tends to repeat old patterns, replay old hurts, and project worries forward. That too creates reality, though not the one you desire. To live consciously, however, is to seize hold of imagination and use it deliberately. It is to guide it into visions of what you truly want, to nurture those visions with feeling until they become second nature. The more natural they feel within, the more inevitable they become without. Imagination is not bound by logic. Logic says, it's too late, too big, too far. Imagination says, it is already done. Logic measures possibilities by the past, but imagination creates possibilities that the past has never known. When you dare to feel the reality of what you desire before it appears, you break the chains of probability and open the door to miracles. Miracles are simply realities imagined with such intensity and persistence that the world could not help but yield to them. So the question is never whether imagination creates reality. It always does. The question is, what are you imagining, and with what feeling and conviction are you holding it? Because whether you are aware of it or not, your inner world is sculpting your outer one in every moment. The images you allow to dominate your mind, charged with the feelings you permit to dwell within you, are writing the script of your life scene by scene. Feeling is the secret. This simple phrase contains within it the key to unlocking the experiences we most deeply desire. Life does not respond to empty words, mechanical affirmations, or hollow declarations that carry no weight. It responds to feeling, for feeling is the language of the subconscious mind. Thought alone may sketch the outline, but feeling is what gives it color and life. It is the vibrational signal that goes out into the unseen, drawing to itself circumstances, people, and events that match the state you are embodying. When you enter into the state of already being loved and devoted to, you magnetize that experience, because life cannot help but reflect the inner state that you sustain with conviction. Most people go about life hoping for love to come from the outside. They long for devotion, but they wait for another person to initiate it, to prove it, to demonstrate it before they allow themselves to feel secure, cherished, and chosen. But this is to misunderstand the order of creation. The outer is not the cause, the outer is the effect. To stand waiting for the effect is to remain in lack. The true cause is the inner state, and the moment you assume and feel yourself as already loved, already adored, already prioritized, the seed of devotion has been planted. It does not matter what the outer world shows today, for the inner feeling is the prophecy of tomorrow's reality. To understand why feeling is so essential, one must look at the way the subconscious mind functions. The subconscious does not argue, reason, or debate. It accepts whatever is impressed upon it through repeated feeling. A thought that passes through the mind lightly will dissolve quickly, but a thought infused with emotion sinks deeply into the subconscious, taking root like a seed in fertile soil. If you continually feel unworthy, abandoned, or overlooked, those feelings will harden into facts in your outer world. You will find yourself living situations that echo the inner assumption. But if you deliberately cultivate the feeling of being desired, cherished, and chosen, your subconscious accepts it as truth, and life arranges itself to mirror that conviction. This is why imagination alone is not enough unless it is accompanied by feeling. To merely think of being loved is like sketching a picture with no color. It is vague, lifeless, and unconvincing. But when you imagine being held, adored, and celebrated, and allow yourself to feel the warmth of that love, the comfort of that embrace, and the joy of that devotion, then the image comes alive. It is no longer fantasy, but an internal experience that the subconscious treats as real. And what is real within must eventually take shape without. Entering into the state of already being loved requires surrendering the habit of waiting. Many hold themselves in suspension, thinking, when they show me love, then I will feel secure. But this keeps the experience locked in a future that never arrives, because the inner state of lack is continuously producing more lack. Instead, the practice is to step into the desired state now, to feel the joy of being adored before there is any outer proof, to embody the satisfaction of devotion before a single action has been taken. This inner assumption is not pretending in the sense of denial, it is claiming the truth that you want to see materialized. The moment you embody the feeling of being loved, something subtle begins to shift. Your posture changes, your energy radiates differently, and your presence carries a new authority. You no longer approach relationships from desperation or fear, but from confidence and wholeness. People respond to this unspoken shift in ways that surprise you, because the outer is compelled to reflect the inner. Situations begin to align, devotion begins to show up in places it was once absent, and those who interact with you start to treat you in accordance with the state you have chosen. It is not that feeling forces others to act against their will, rather, it organizes the play of life in such a way that those who resonate with your state appear, and those who do not fade from relevance. Life bends itself around the conviction you hold, bringing you evidence of what you have already accepted inwardly. In this way, you are never waiting for devotion. It is already yours, and the outer world is simply catching up to what you have assumed. The persistence in maintaining this feeling is the bridge between inner vision and outer manifestation. There will be moments when doubts arise, when circumstances seem unchanged, when the temptation to return to fear and lack whispers at you. But feeling is not a one-time performance. It is a state to be returned to again and again until it becomes natural. The more natural the feeling of being loved becomes, the less effort it takes to sustain it, and the faster the outer reflects it back. Feeling is not only the secret to attracting devotion from another, but it is the secret to transforming your entire life. Every desire you hold, whether for love, success, abundance, or freedom, requires you to feel it first. Words alone, even visualizations alone, are incomplete without the emotional atmosphere that convinces the subconscious of its reality. Feeling is the magnetic current that bridges the invisible and the visible, the unmanifest and the manifest. To master this truth is to stop waiting for the world to change before you allow yourself to feel fulfilled. It is to reverse the order, to feel fulfilled now and watch the world follow. Devotion, when sought outside, slips away like smoke. But when embodied inside, it solidifies into form. The secret is not in them, not in circumstances, not in waiting. It is in you, in the feeling you dare to claim and live in, regardless of appearances. For life is always echoing what you feel to be true. Inner conversations become outer events. This principle reveals one of the most overlooked yet powerful truths about human experience. Every day, without pause, the mind engages in dialogue. Some of these conversations are loud and external, shared with others, but most are silent, taking place beneath the surface of awareness. These inner words may seem private, but they are not without consequence. The way you silently speak about yourself, the tone you adopt, and the assumptions you repeat determine how others respond to you. The world is not separate from your internal dialogue. It is a mirror faithfully reflecting the conversations you entertain within. Think about the countless times you have anticipated a meeting, a relationship, or an encounter by rehearsing it in your mind. You play out scenarios, imagine what the other person will say, and silently respond. These imagined dialogues are not meaningless. They are seeds. Each inner conversation plants itself into the subconscious and grows into the circumstances you later meet. When you walk into a room having already convinced yourself that you are overlooked, ignored, or unworthy, your body language, energy, and presence reflect that inner belief. Others in turn respond accordingly, reinforcing what you have been whispering to yourself all along. On the other hand, if your inner conversations are rooted in worth, confidence, and being chosen, you walk differently, carry yourself differently, and radiate an assurance that cannot be hidden. Without speaking a word, others feel it and adjust their behavior in response. What you accept within is broadcast outward, shaping interactions and relationships. This is why changing outer circumstances without changing inner dialogue often fails, because the foundation of every outer event is the inner script you continuously rehearse. It is not difficult to observe how this plays out in everyday life. Consider a person who constantly says within themselves, "No one respects me." Though they may never say it aloud, The statement becomes their inner song. Over time, their tone grows defensive, their actions apologetic, and their energy communicates a plea for approval. Others sense this unspoken state and treat them in ways that confirm it. Respect does not come because the inner conversation does not allow it. Now imagine the same person revising their inner dialogue to, I am respected, I am valued, I am heard. With repetition and feeling, this new conversation sinks in, altering their inner state. Soon, without conscious effort, they speak with more authority, carry themselves with dignity, and demand respect not by force but by presence. Life mirrors the new dialogue and respect begins to flow naturally. The subconscious mind does not differentiate between inner speech and outer speech. To it, what you whisper silently is as real as what you declare aloud. This is why inner conversations are so powerful. They are constant affirmations, prayers, and decrees shaping the world around you. Many unknowingly sabotage themselves through self-critical inner talk. They dwell on rejection, betrayal, or lack, replaying painful words over and over. Each repetition deepens the groove in the subconscious, ensuring that the outer world must bring more evidence to match. Yet the reverse is just as true. By deliberately cultivating inner conversations of love, devotion, and success, you impress the subconscious with a new reality, and the world must bend to reveal it. Inner speech not only affects how others treat you, but also how you treat yourself. The silent conversations you have throughout the day create your self-concept. If you habitually tell yourself, I am unworthy, I am not enough, I am overlooked, then you live in alignment with those assumptions. Your choices, your posture, and your decisions will reflect that belief, often leading to experiences that confirm it. But if you persist in the inner conversation, I am cherished, I am chosen, I am powerful, you raise your self-concept and everything in life adjusts to that higher view. Opportunities appear, people respond differently, and even your own behavior shifts to match the inner decree. It is important to realize that others are not acting independently of your assumptions. They are actors in the play you are silently directing. The lines you give them in your imagination become the roles they play in your life. If you persist in seeing someone as unkind, unfair, or distant in your inner conversations, you continue to script them in that role, and they will show up accordingly. But if you revise your inner dialogue, seeing them as loving, attentive, and devoted, the script changes. And over time, their behavior begins to reflect the new story. This is not manipulation, but recognition of the law that the outer follows the inner. You are not forcing others, but shifting your assumptions, and life naturally rearranges to mirror your belief. When you change your inner conversation about a person, you change the relationship itself, because relationships are sustained not only by outer interactions, but by the silent conversations that run endlessly within. The discipline lies in observing your inner speech and choosing it deliberately. Most people let their inner dialogue run on autopilot, replaying old hurts or predicting disappointments. But just as you can choose the words you speak aloud, you can choose the words you speak inwardly. When you notice self-critical, fearful, or doubtful inner talk, you can interrupt it and replace it with words that affirm your worth, your love, and your desired outcome. At first, this may feel unnatural, but persistence transforms the unnatural into the natural. What you rehearse inwardly becomes your second nature, and once it is second nature, it must appear outwardly. Every great transformation begins with a new inner conversation. To change your life, change the way you talk to yourself. Speak to yourself as one who is already loved, already successful, already chosen. Carry on inner dialogues that reflect the reality you want, not the one you fear. For your inner words are not contained within. They travel outward, shaping events, people, and circumstances to mirror them faithfully. Everyone reflects your assumptions. This truth reveals the hidden mechanism behind human interaction and the way relationships unfold in daily life. People are not acting as isolated beings detached from your inner world. Rather, they serve as mirrors, reflecting back to you the assumptions you hold most firmly about yourself and about them. This is not to say that others have no individuality, but in relation to you, their behavior is filtered through the lens of your dominant state. The assumptions you carry within, whether conscious or unconscious, become the invisible script that directs how others show up in your experience. Imagine walking into a room with the deep-seated assumption that you are insignificant, unnoticed, and unworthy of attention. Even without uttering a word, your body language, your energy, and your very presence will communicate that belief. Others, without realizing it, will respond in ways that match your assumption. Perhaps by overlooking you, ignoring you, or treating you as though you are invisible. Now contrast this with entering the same room while holding the assumption that you are valuable, magnetic, and worthy of being seen. Instantly, your demeanor shifts, your presence expands, and others unconsciously align to treat you with the importance you have claimed inwardly. The outer world bends to the inner world, and people become mirrors of what you persistently believe. This principle can be difficult to accept because it challenges the common notion that other people act independently of us. Yet when observed carefully, patterns reveal themselves. The friend who continually disrespects you, the partner who withholds affection, the colleague who undervalues your contribution. All of these reflect not random behavior, but the assumptions you have accepted and carried within. If you believe deep down that people do not value you, you will continue to encounter situations that affirm that belief. If you assume that others are devoted, kind, and supportive, you will witness those qualities coming alive in your relationships. The key lies in recognizing that assumptions are not simply fleeting thoughts. They are states of being, the inner atmosphere you dwell in and return to repeatedly. They create expectations, and expectations inevitably seek fulfillment. To assume that you are loved and respected is to create an inner state where love and respect must find expression in the outer world. To assume rejection or neglect is to create a state where life cannot help but reflect those experiences back to you. People in this way are not independent actors but cooperative participants playing the roles your assumptions assign to them. Consider how this principle plays out in intimate relationships. If someone continually assumes their partner is distant, unfaithful, or uninterested, they may begin to notice small signs that confirm the fear. They interpret neutral actions as evidence of neglect, and soon, the partner behaves in ways that match the assumed narrative. On the other hand, if the assumption is shifted to one of devotion, loyalty, and deep affection, the inner change begins to alter the outer. The partner, even without conscious effort, rises to fulfill the new role being silently written for them. The relationship transforms not because the other person has been manipulated, but because the inner assumption has changed and the outer world always reflects it. This does not mean you are to blame for the unkind or hurtful actions of others, but it does mean you hold the power to transform how they show up in your experience by shifting your assumptions. Blame looks outward, but responsibility looks inward. When you accept that people mirror your state, you reclaim the power to write a new story. If you persist in assuming the best of yourself and others, life cannot help but bring you evidence of that belief. The subconscious mind is always listening to the assumptions you carry, and it impresses those assumptions onto the screen of your life. When you declare inwardly, "I am loved, I am chosen, I am respected," you are not merely comforting yourself. You are instructing the world to reflect those truths through the behavior of others. When you silently repeat, "People always disappoint me," you are setting the stage for disappointment to arrive. The law is impartial, it reflects whatever is assumed, whether positive or negative, whether desired or feared. To live consciously is to deliberately select the assumptions you want mirrored. This requires awareness because many assumptions are buried deep, formed by past experiences and repeated inner conversations. If you experience neglect or rejection in the past, you may unconsciously carry the assumption that people are unreliable or unloving. Without examination, those assumptions continue to create the same cycles in new forms. But the moment you bring them to light and replace them with chosen assumptions, the cycle begins to break. By persistently dwelling in the assumption that people are kind, loving, and devoted to you, you shift your inner state, and soon the mirror must adjust to reflect the new image. The outer world is like a stage, and the people you encounter are actors playing their parts. But the script is written within you, line by line through your assumptions. If you do not like the role someone is playing, revise the script inwardly. See them differently in your imagination, assume a new quality of relationship, and persist until it feels natural. As the inner conviction grows, the outer performance must change, because no actor can resist the pull of the role assigned by your dominant state. The more faithfully you apply this truth, the more power you reclaim over your life. Instead of begging, demanding, or forcing others to change, you change yourself and others follow suit. Instead of reacting to outer behavior, you turn inward, shifting the assumption that created it. Slowly but surely, relationships that once felt strained begin to soften, conflicts dissolve, and devotion emerges, not because you controlled another person, but because you assumed a new state and allowed the mirror of life to reflect it. Living in the end means to dwell in the state of already having what you desire rather than lingering in the endless cycle of waiting, hoping, or striving. It is the practice of embodying the reality you seek as though it were already yours, and in doing so, allowing life itself to conform to that assumption. When the longing is for devotion, love, and commitment, the natural temptation is to look outward, watching and measuring whether others are showing signs of giving it. Yet this outward focus keeps the desired state forever distant, because the more you wait for devotion to appear, the more you affirm its absence. Living in the end reverses this order. It begins with claiming the feeling of being loved now, walking as though you are already chosen, already cherished, already secure in devotion. To live in the end is not to pretend in the sense of denial, nor is it self-deception. It is the deliberate selection of a new state of being. The truth is that all states already exist as possibilities, and the one you occupy internally determines the experiences that crystallize outwardly. If you live in the state of being unloved, the world will reflect rejection. If you live in the state of being adored, the world must mirror devotion. The state you choose becomes the seed, and the outer world is the harvest. Many people sabotage their desires by continually rehearsing lack. They affirm, "One day I will be loved," or "I hope they will be devoted to me." But such statements carry within them the implication that the devotion is not yet present. The subconscious accepts this absence as the dominant reality and continues to reproduce it. Living in the end removes this delay by assuming the desire as already fulfilled. Instead of hoping, you feel the reality now. Instead of waiting, you embody the outcome inwardly and allow the outer to align itself in time. The key to this practice lies in feeling. Words and thoughts alone will not suffice unless they are infused with the emotional conviction that the desired state is real now. When you close your eyes and imagine being deeply loved, being cherished and prioritized, you allow yourself to feel the warmth, the comfort, and the security of devotion. You dwell in the sensation of it as though it were happening this very moment. In doing so, you convince the subconscious of its truth, and the subconscious, being impersonal and creative, reshapes the world to match the assumption. Living in the end requires faith, because the outer world may still show evidence to the contrary. You may not yet see the devotion you long for, and appearances may tempt you back into doubt. But faith is the ability to persist in the unseen, to hold the inner reality steady even when the outer has not yet conformed. The more consistently you return to the end, the more natural it becomes, until the line between imagination and reality dissolves. Once the state feels natural, it is only a matter of time before life delivers it in form. This way of being also transforms how you carry yourself in daily life. When you live in the end, you no longer approach relationships with fear, desperation, or insecurity. You no longer beg for signs of love or search for validation, because you are already rooted in the inner certainty of devotion. This certainty radiates outward, and others respond to it, often without knowing why. You become magnetic not because you chase devotion, but because you embody it. Devotion flows to you as a natural reflection of your state. Living in the end also frees you from the trap of time. Desire often creates a sense of waiting for the right person, the right moment, the right circumstance. But waiting is a declaration that you do not yet have it. To live in the end is to step out of time entirely. You move from "I will be loved" into "I am loved." You move from "I will be chosen" into "I am chosen." By collapsing the distance between desire and fulfillment, you place yourself directly in the reality you seek, and time itself rearranges to deliver the outer confirmation. An example of this can be seen when someone desires reconciliation with a partner. If they continue to think, "One day we might be together again," they live in longing, and the longing perpetuates itself. But if they shift inwardly to the state of already being reunited, already secure in devotion, they walk differently, think differently, and their energy aligns with union rather than separation. In this state, life begins to orchestrate events that make the reconciliation possible, because the outer cannot resist the pull of the inner conviction. Persistence is essential, for the mind will often wander back to appearances. Doubt may whisper, "But nothing has changed," or fear may remind you of past disappointments. In these moments, the practice is to gently but firmly return to the end. Replay the inner scene of being loved, feel the devotion as though it were real now, and allow that state to soothe the mind. Each return strengthens the assumption, and over time, the assumption becomes second nature. When it is second nature within, it must appear without. Living in the end is not limited to devotion alone, but applies to every desire. The principle is universal: embody the end, and the end will embody itself in your world. Whether the desire is for love, abundance, success, or freedom, the method is the same. Assume the state of the wish fulfilled, feel it is real, and persist until it becomes natural. The world is simply the mirror, and the mirror cannot reflect anything other than the image you hold steadily within. Persistence creates fulfillment. This truth reveals why some desires come to pass with ease, while others remain unfulfilled. The difference is not in the desire itself, nor in the worthiness of the one who desires, but in the persistence with which the inner vision is held. It is easy to imagine once, to feel inspired briefly, and then to abandon the vision when outer circumstances seem to contradict it. Yet creation is not instantaneous for most things. It is a process, and persistence is the bridge that carries imagination into reality. To persist is to refuse to surrender your inner conviction to the evidence of the senses. It is to remain loyal to the unseen truth until it hardens into fact. When a seed is planted in the ground, no one expects a flower to bloom the very next morning. There is an understanding that unseen growth is occurring beneath the soil, even when nothing is visible on the surface. The gardener waters and tends to the soil, not because there is immediate evidence of progress, but because they know the process is unfolding invisibly. In the same way, when you plant the seed of your desire through imagination and feeling, persistence is the watering of that seed. Each return to the inner vision strengthens it, each moment of faith nourishes it, and though the surface may appear unchanged, something is happening beneath. The challenge arises because the outer world often presents a picture in direct contradiction to the desire. Perhaps you have imagined devotion, yet the person you long for seems distant. Perhaps you have envisioned success, yet your circumstances look unchanged. In these moments, the temptation is to waver, to declare that the vision is not working and to give up. But the contradiction is not evidence of failure. It is simply the lag between inner assumption and outer manifestation. To yield to doubt in this stage is to uproot the seed before it can bear fruit. To persist is to trust the unseen process and remain faithful to the end already imagined. Persistence is not effort in the sense of constant struggle. It is not about straining or forcing yourself into belief. Rather, it is the quiet discipline of returning to your chosen state again and again, regardless of appearances. It is the refusal to be moved by temporary setbacks or outward delay. When doubt arises, persistence gently replaces it with the vision. When fear whispers, persistence answers with faith. Over time, the repeated return to the inner truth engraves it into the subconscious, and once it is established there, the outer must conform. Every person who has transformed their life has done so through persistence. Great inventors, artists, and dreamers were confronted with countless failures and rejections, yet they persisted in holding the vision of what they knew to be possible. In the realm of personal desires, the principle is the same. If you desire devotion, it is persistence in the assumption, I am loved, I am chosen, I am cherished, that allows the world to eventually reflect that truth. If you waver and replace it with, perhaps I am unworthy, perhaps it will never happen, then you plant and uproot the seed again and again, preventing it from taking root. Persistence also requires patience because life unfolds in divine timing. To demand immediate results is to measure the process by the wrong standard. The measure is not whether the outer has changed in this moment, but whether you have remained loyal to the inner vision. When you persist in the unseen long enough, the outer has no choice but to yield, for the law of assumption is unfailing. The only variable is whether you will remain steadfast long enough to see it fulfilled. It is important to understand that persistence is not about clinging in desperation. Desperation itself is a state of lack, a confession that the desire is not yet here. True persistence is calm, assured, and steady. It rests in the inner knowing that the end is already secured and simply holds to that knowing until it becomes visible. When practiced in this way, persistence becomes a quiet strength, a silent power that carries you through the fluctuations of appearances without being moved by them. One of the most powerful applications of persistence is revision. When the outer presents a scene that contradicts your desire, persistence does not accept it as final. Instead, you return inward and revise the scene, replacing it with the outcome you prefer. Each time you persist in the revised vision, you deny permanence to the unwanted and strengthen the reality of the desired. Slowly, the revision becomes natural, and the outer adjusts itself to align with your inner persistence. The world is shaped not by occasional flashes of imagination, but by the steady pressure of sustained assumption. It is what you return to day after day, moment after moment, that determines the outcome. A passing thought may stir hope, but only persistence engraves the truth into the subconscious. When it is engraved there, it becomes law, and law cannot fail. Persistence creates fulfillment because it demonstrates loyalty to the unseen. It says, though the world denies it now, I know it is already mine. It refuses to be persuaded by the silence of the seedling stage and instead nourishes the vision until the fruit appears. The outer world, with all its noise and contradiction, is powerless against a mind that persists. Eventually, the persistence wears down the resistance of appearances, and what was once only imagined stands before you as fact. So stop chasing shadows in the world outside. Stop asking, why don't they love me? And start declaring, I am the one who is loved, chosen, and adored. Focus on you, not them. Because the moment you assume yourself as the center of devotion, the world will rise to prove you right. Devotion is not found, it is manifested, and it begins with the power of your own inner state.